Okay, quickly on Trigon metals. We'll get going. We've got copper production in Africa. We're operating in Namibia and exploring in Morocco. I think probably a little different story than a lot of companies here. We did push into production this year. We actually had some liquidity issues, paused in June, and queued up to restart production early next year. We're doing this, I think, in some of the best jurisdictions to be operating in Africa. Namibia, strong mining history. Morocco, fantastic infrastructure, and actually a lot of mining on the phosphate side. And then we're doing it, I think, in a very unique time in copper with what's happening. A bit of background. Myself, I'm a mining engineer. Spent a good time in mine finance, but I think what I'd really like to point out is a couple of things. We have Larissa Sprott on our board, the daughter of Eric Sprott, who is our largest shareholder. And then Fanny Mueller, our VP operations. He is a South African mine engineer out of Anglo American who lives full time in Namibia, now a naturalized Namibian, and he's down operating the mine, and why I can be here. Share price chart, not a very happy place for us. It's been rough. Like I said, we struggled with some liquidity as we started the operation at the beginning of the year. But most notably, we actually do have a lot of cash now. We were able to do a silver streaming deal. Where what we've done is forward sold our silver. It's about 4% of our revenue. That brought in US $37.5 million. That we're sitting now with $30 million on our balance sheet, and interestingly, a market capitalization of just $20 million. So a pretty good value proposition on that front. The interesting feature of this deal is, we've talked about why you should be very bullish on copper with all that's happening with electrification. But we just got through a presentation on gold, and I think that has a knock-on effect to silver. We have forward sold our silver, but we do have an opportunity to buy that back, and I think that's going to be an interesting feature for us. We can now buy back half of our stream and return that upside for our shareholders. Not something that you see in many of these streaming deals. Our main project, Kombat, is in I'd say northern Namibia. Fantastic roads, fantastic infrastructure. We export our concentrate out through the port of Walfish Bay. Kombat is a past producing mine, operated for over 45 years, and we've inherited all of that infrastructure. Having that infrastructure has given us an opportunity and a lower cost at getting back into production. We invested US $12 million, and we're able to produce our first concentrates this year. We've got a fantastic growth profile. So the $30 million that we now have on the balance sheet pays for the first two stages of growth. That would be from the open pit in pounds of copper, about 6.5 million pounds of open pit copper production. And it also pays for our first stage of underground production, and you'll see that about 23 million pounds of copper production that we're expecting from underground. Our go forward operating cost is sub $2 a pound. So the 30 million, so we have 20 million of market cap, 30 million of cash, and a pathway to $60 million of EBITDA. So again, and that's without any help from copper here. So a really great value proposition for our shareholders. Some interesting features of that is our production. Our Production is coming from the open pit between shaft 1 and shaft 3. And then our first stage of underground is going to be around shaft 1. But there's a third shaft on our property called the Assis Far West shaft. And that's our third stage of growth. That is a 750 meter, 2,000 ton per day production shaft that was built by our predecessor. In doing so, they bankrupted themselves, and that's why we have the asset now. But it probably cost them about $90 million to put that shaft in, and would cost us maybe 2.5 times that to do that now. But it gives, again, value-wise, you're buying the company at a fraction of the cost of the infrastructure. But more importantly, that third stage of growth has the ability to add about 40 million pounds of copper production for us. So we have a growth profile all the way to 70 million pounds of copper production, again, at almost $2 of EBITDA per pound of copper. So a lot of growth, all from our one asset in Namibia here. That's supported by 12 years of resource that we have on hand and delineated, but a lot of exploration upside beyond that. Everything we've talked about, the resource and all of that capital growth, comes from the green area in the center where you see the 3 shafts. And that's an area of about 6 kilometers of strike length. But we control that whole belt. It's about 35 kilometers with 14 plus copper showings along that belt that need to be explored. So beyond that 70 million pound production profile, there's a lot of exploration upside that could grow us beyond, grow us to a much larger company. Interestingly, that's not all the growth. And if you ask most of our shareholders, where they see our growth coming from is actually Morocco. We've been exploring in Morocco for the last 2.5 years. Our project is called Silver Hill. Morocco, again, is just a fantastic jurisdiction. We've got, great power we can rely on, well-paved roads, clear and easy government to deal with. But it is woefully underexplored. There's a lot of opportunities there, and our Silver Hill, I think, is a great example of that. So the project is called Silver Hill. It is a copper project, about 65% copper by value, 30% silver, and then some cobalt. We've had some great results at surface. We had 13 meters, 2.7% copper, 34.5 grams per ton of silver with 0.082 kilograms of cobalt per ton. We did some remote sensing work here where we tested we were looking for chargeability, and the anomaly that we're dealing with is now 4 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and we're pushing to get some exploration there, and we think have a project there that could ultimately compare or even be larger than what we're dealing with in Namibia. Africa is going to be an important part of where the world's copper comes from. You can see that Chile and Peru are producing less and less copper each year, and the world has really depended on them for the last 30 years. I think being in Namibia and Morocco, we're in some of the best places to be operating on the continent, and in a place where we can help supply the world's copper for a long time. Valuation-wise, because of that negative enterprise value, there's not a better bargain out there. You can buy us for less than cash, and we really are outperform as far as growth for what we've got as a company. So yeah, thanks for your time and attention.